We're in the middle of one of the best storylines in Vinland, the Arnheid Gardar one, and that's for all the reasons. For some people this might be the Canute waiting room. I pity them really. They're missing out on what I'm on. Episode 15 covers chapters 82 and 83. Two great chapters, relatively dense in dialogue, and so while they're only just over 50 pages, that's not bad pacing for the episode. They knew this was an important scene, and honestly I didn't really trust them to get that. They knew, and they even had a cold open of Gardar, looking like the panel where he's about to say the important line. That's how it came off to me at least. Excellent production. There's so much stuff I want to get the good treatment, aside the obvious stuff that I know will get it, but I'm glad it was this. If it was a mediocre episode, I'd definitely bitch about episode 4 not deserving it. Finally, Gardar looks a bit like Gardar, aside the lack of hard shadows. This scene was so good. It's one of the very rare times that a scene happens almost exactly as I imagined it. Always I had in my head the environmental sounds in the scene, the wind and the foliage, the movement of the guards, and it cutting out when Gardar apologizes. And the anime was so close to that. That is one of my favorite moments in Vinland Saga. I sit on it for like 5 minutes, specifically these 2 pages. The adapted panel, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. This exact expression in the manga is incredible to me. Tells so much. And they're a fact. I don't care if you tell me there's no text, so I can't exactly tell what this means. I can. I know what this is. This is non-negotiable. The expression just speaks this strongly. Arnheid got put in a terrible position where she couldn't really do much, but it also felt like she was abandoning her husband, especially if you consider they act on different information. The pregnancy does tie her hands even more. Snake tells her what to think, and he's right on the money that she needs a justification to not feel guilty. Gardar being a bit insane helps her in that, and also, didn't he abandon her and Hjalti? Isn't all this his fault? So she can calm the guilt, weather the storm, resolve herself in her decision. She just needs a little bit more appeasement. She can't help it. And he pleads for her to cut the ropes, and she expected that. And bam! He concisely addresses and apologizes exactly for what Arnheid blamed him for. More than that, he's not the crazy Gardar, he's fully lucid and calm and genuine. And no hard shadows in the manga. And any mental wall Arnheid has put up just crumbles. And oh shit, now it's significantly harder for her to leave him, isn't it? She knows it. And she blamed him so hard, and now she is extra guilty about that. Guilt is kind of important in Vinland, so I pay attention to it, and it was always interesting to me how this is the person that has to feel guilt in the story. People like Prologue Thorfinn or Thorgil don't. Out of all people, she's the one. And she always does the thing where she covers her ears with her hands. It almost looks like a rejection of outside stimuli, trying to get things in order and stop the emotional bombardment. It's a neat thing because it's something I only remember her doing, like a specific quirk of the character. Arnheid is top 5 Vinland characters to me. She used to be top 3. Just emotional complexity in difficult situation, and she makes any part of the story she touches gold. Wow, rewatching it and they really did cut some of her lines addressing this in episode 16. Bad cut. Why? You need to stretch here anyways. This was the best part of the dialogue here. It's not like that element is removed from the story, but that was a bad cut. I even like the guards' involvement in this scene, because of the juxtaposition between their idiocy and the hard-hitting line right after. But also because it's that element of warriors being a bit childlike, like Thorfinn after Prologue lacking a lot of emotional maturity and social skills. This guy talks his bullshit, but after being ignored and the adults start talking, he's like, this isn't fun anymore. The throat bite was also great because they took the time to make the guy drawing the sword as intense as it should be. Such a cool scene. Gardar switches to crazy mode again, and I also like how in the manga he gets the shading again. Now, personally, I would have taken the sad piano out of the scene. The whole thing would have hit much harder without it. Like usual, I rarely feel the music is perfect. A bit too heavy-handed for me, both the piano and also the next scene's music being a tad bit more intense than I would have liked, overselling it. Snake right after though is fantastic, and the music is perfect in this one. Undefeated manga panel, but damn, this was so well executed. Second half of the episode, it's more self-explanatory. Vinland more directly communicates this societal analysis it's doing that's so important to so many characters, like Prologue Thorfinn, Snake, Olmar, most male characters really. Pride and wealth and status. Einar hasn't really lived inside Norse society, so he doesn't actually know what it's like. The subs make it seem like literally men don't survive if they don't follow the norms. The next line about becoming an outcast should clear that up a bit. In the manga, Thorfinn says that if you act in a way that might brand you as a coward, you will be shunned. That's the real threat here. Ostracization, ridicule, shaming, not that much a physical one. They cut two small bits here that are fun details. Thorfinn is momentarily hurt when reminded of the suffering he caused. And then he's like, no, what am I talking about? Forget I said that. He has a small slip-up. And then, after Thorfinn remarks about how he was totally apathetic to the things he was doing in prologue, there's a moment where they linger on how come only Thorfinn can see the dead, that you probably only see them after you stop being a warrior. They get nowhere with this, of course. They're probably actually attributing Thorfinn's dreams to some spiritual force, a curse. They're in the 10th century, they don't know psychology. I imagine some people dumbing down this into war bad, because yes, that's the purpose of this scene. See, they say it. There's definitely nothing more to get out of this scene. The fun thing about this scene is that two people in a society that functions without considering war and slavery are bad are questioning the world around them in an adequately clumsy but genuine way, and according to their individual experiences. And how they go about it can also give us things to discover and read into. Thorfinn is ashamed of having been a warrior in a world that shames you into acting like one, which it did to Thorfinn. That was his primary motivation, pride, shame, which was eclipsed by a much stronger shame and guilt when he met the victims, mostly Einar, but Arnheid too. Such a strong force that moves all these characters. The farming also has its payoff here. Thorfinn has learned to value creation, and it gives him a path of atonement better than simply him being harmless. The dream of eliminating slavery and war takes form and becomes something reasonable, just a single village. But you might have to defend it, of course, Einar says. It's kind of his role in these chapters. But that isn't really an escape from war, is it? And this is where Vinland finally comes in. So far away that the Vikings can't reach it. Yeah, they technically can, okay? But they do this for profit. Nobody's gonna go all the way to Vinland and back to raid a single village because they heard about that Thorfinn Karlsefni guy and fuck him in particular. And what I love about this Vinland realization is there's no Thors or Leif around. Thorfinn idea for Thorfinn reasons. All this sequence, by the way, also really well done. Those beautifully adapted panels. Great work. Next episode is not as good. It adapts chapters 84 and 85. Mother of all stretches, by the way. 42 pages only. I really expected this to be paired up with the next chapter and to get the Kobayashi treatment. Seems like only the next chapter might get it. Sad. Even had a recap to help. And that first scene with Arnheid. Wow, I'm impressed how much time it covered even after they cut stuff. Don't confuse this with me praising it though. It wasn't bad, but definitely too long. The snake Sverkel scene was a highlight of the episode. One of those moments where the music felt like it was made for the scene. It matches perfectly with Snake's rejection at the end. It didn't overpower the scene. Like the music at the end where they try to hype up Thorfinn squaring up. I don't know why I have beef with the music. I say one good thing, I have to say one bad. But I feel like I need to properly communicate my tastes here. I found that moment a little bit silly because of the OST. Maybe because they also added a visual of prologue Thorfinn and I think he's lame. I also hate him as a fighter because of how anime he is. And the knives never worked that well in the action scenes for me, both manga and anime. Any other weapon and the bare hands always make for more coherent fight scenes and with more satisfying momentum, I think. Get those shitty knives out of here. How dare you try to hype me up with prologue Thorfinn? Ew. What the fuck? The essence of the scene is how Snake is stuck in this duty and obligation, and really identity that necessitates that. Sverkel talks about slaves not ever deserving to be slaves, and Snake says it's not about that, it's about his vendetta. But Sverkel is actually spot on, because that's what vengeance is about. It's about enforcing some sort of justice. That's why there's an expectation and obligation for it culturally. That's what Snake's whole character is about. The Snake confrontation and everything that comes after it in the next episode is one of my favorite scenes in Vinland Saga. I don't think it's perfect in the anime. A lot of panels, Snakes especially, weren't done justice, and I do have unreal expectations, but the direction was good. It was an exciting scene, aside some anime over-the-topness. Not a lot adapted, so not a lot to talk about, especially since most of the episode was just executing a plan. Finally, as an experienced manga reader again, I make mental note of Thorfinn contemplating stuff like no other choice. I think Einar has had a couple of lines like that. Thorfinn chose violence cause of course he did, under the circumstances. I like how in the very first time he's faced with a violent situation, he breaks the oath. I'm not too afraid about the next episode, cause at the end of the day it's the Kobayashi treatment, but episode 18, I hope it's not a saving up episode either. It has a really important scene that has to be done good in it. And there's not a lot of chances for these lower budget episodes, except maybe 19. Anyway, we'll see. See you next time.